Hello, everybody, and welcome again to another episode of One Another Marriage with Dr. David and Theresa Mabry, where we seek to strengthen marriages for greater satisfaction and impact on the world around you. That's what we're here for, and welcome back again, or for the first time.
Hi, everyone.
Here's Theresa Mabry.
Here I am. You always make me chuckle.
Do I? How? I mean, it's just the same, right?
Know.
It's the same every single time.
It is
We
the same.
open the exact same way.
I think it's because I can see you, and so I see your face, and
I look at you like, your turn.
I don't know. Yeah, you do. You get this little look, kind of like, all right. There you go.
Did you have to say it that way? It's like, all right, even.
That's the way I see it.
All right.
So, no, I'm not seeing Matthew McConaughey right now. So,
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
So, yeah, you just make me chuckle.
I'm glad.
Hi, everyone.
That's why we're together.
Hello, listeners.
Hello, listeners.
One another listeners.
Yep.
So,
yep.
Yeah. Hey, so we are, we're at the end of September.
Can you believe it?
Isn't that crazy?
Here we are. And summer is complete, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's always funny how they tell us that technically summer is over, but you still have the occasional warm days and different things. But yeah, fall is approaching quickly.
I think we've hit the last of our warm days. I think we're wrapped up.
Well, by warm you mean almost a 90.
Yeah.
Upper 80s. But I mean, we're still going to have, that's what I'm saying though, like sometimes in October you can still have those days where it's 70 something, but man, it just like, it can get hot.
And what time, so today's the last day is it the last day of summer today, or last like half day? What time does it happen? Isn't it a set time like at 3:55 on today, the 21st?
I have no idea.
It's so funny. I'm going to look it up while
look it up. It's usually in the middle of the night. So
is it really? See, someone I just saw a meme on this. Is that why does the time change of always have to happen like in the middle of the night? Why doesn't it happen like a Friday afternoon where you go forward on a Friday afternoon? So
that's
it's
a
4 o'clock on Friday afternoon. The time changes, so you get to leave work right away.
See, that's a puzzle. There you go.
Why
doesn't it?
That's not the official puzzle, but that's a good puzzle. So
that's funny.
You go ahead and tell what the episode's about, and I'm going to look up this exactly when it finishes.
Okay, so David's doing his thing over there. So, hey, the episode today is actually going to be on seeking and granting forgiveness. Every relationship has hurts, disappointments, breaking of trust. These are all just things that kind of creep in to each relationship, and your relationship will never be perfect, and it will never be without some type of what we just said, mistakes or mistrust or just hurts and pains. When those things happen, it is not always easy to seek forgiveness or grant it at times, because we can be wounded, and that's just the reality. So today we're going to be unpacking and walking through a little bit more information on how to go about seeking and granting forgiveness with your partner. And so there we go. That's the episode.
It'll be a good conversation because it's necessary in every relationship. I have an answer, I think.
Okay.
So, fall begins with the on Wednesday. Oh, actually, it's tomorrow. I always thought it was the 21st. I always have 21st in my brain.
Well,
but sometimes it's 20th, sometimes it's 21st, but it's tomorrow at 3:21 p.m.
There we go.
Fall begins. So, hey, folks, if you're listening to this on the day that it comes out, the 21st, happy last day of summer for 2021.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah, it's roughly around the 20th, 21st of those quarters.
Yeah.
So.
Can I give a shout out?
Yes, do it. Let's go.
Hey, shout out to Haviland, Kansas.
Woohoo!
Haviland, Kansas. Do you know the significance of Haviland, Kansas?
Haviland, Kansas. Do I?
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
What's
Do our
the
listeners?
significance?
I don't know.
Well, some of our listeners do, like
the listeners that are in
the
Haviland.
many people in Haviland, Kansas that are listening to One Another Marriage podcast.
Well, the significance is that is where Berkeley College is located.
And Berkeley College is significant because
that is your job. You
that's right.
that is a job that you hold. Is you are the dean of the graduate studies online.
Yep, the School of Graduate Studies.
Thank you. I blanked. I was like School of Graduate Studies.
Berkeley College, which is based out of Haviland, Kansas, but it's online. So,
the graduate school, is online. However, there are some undergrad online, but there's also present in Haviland undergrad students that are right there on campus.
And I think we know that there are folks that listen to the podcast because of our connection with Berkeley College, but also we've spoken at some retreats that are that direction, and I think that some folks have seen us speak at retreat and whatnot. And so a shout out to our dear friends in Haviland, Kansas and the surrounding area. And hey.
And the Barkley Bears. There you go.
On the Barkley Bears. And if on a side note, if you're looking for a great college, either residential on campus or online undergrad or graduate, we have a wonderful program in family ministries for graduate school. So if you want to do what Theresa and I do, helping marriages and families, then look at the program in family ministries. We'd love to have you. And you can live anywhere in the world, even a future shout out, New Zealand.
Oh, well, are they future or are you just...
I'm not doing it right now.
All right.
Future.
Hold that.
You can be in South Africa, France, Germany. We have listeners all over the world.
Nice.
Sorry, I didn't want to blow it.
I don't know.
But
all right.
So that's the deal.
So there you go. Shout out to Haviland, Kansas. Thank you so much. If you are one of our listeners in Haviland, we appreciate you. And just today is your day. Woohoo!
Today is your day, and I'll see you all next week. I'm traveling out there, so
awesome.
Yeah. Hey, can I share my puzzle real quick?
Puzzle.
We're checking off the boxes, ladies and gentlemen.
Puzzle time.
And look at this. We're only 7.5 minutes in, and we're already we've accomplished an awful lot. I feel like we've done better this week than last week. What shall we ramble on about? Maybe we really maybe we learned our lesson, and people are tuning in for couple advice.
I don't know.
Not to hear us ramble on.
Well, it
about
depends on what
stuff.
your puzzle is. Once you share your puzzle, that may get my brain moving in a different direction. I don't know.
This is definitely going to get your brain moving. So
ready, set, go.
My puzzle is, why is Iron Maiden not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Whoa.
That's a travesty.
Is it now?
That is a travesty.
Okay.
Iron Maiden should be...
Give us more. Give us more. Those of us in the listening category that might not be Iron Maiden fans. I mean, first of all, Iron Maiden is a hard rock group from...
Iron Maiden is a rock and roll band.
The era of...
80s, but 70s is when they started.
Yeah.
And 80s and 90s. So they've been around for...
they have been around.
I mean, over 40 years.
Yep.
Over 40 years they've been around. I need to look that up. But they have had a significant influence on rock and roll music, and they are not yet inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Wow.
I believe they've been nominated.
Have they been nominated?
I believe so.
Okay.
But hey, folks, let's do a campaign by One Another Marriage to get Iron Maiden installed into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And you know what we've just done? We've lost 3/4 of our audience,
I know.
I'm sure.
They're
but
like,
here's
who?
It's the 25% that care about Iron Maiden getting into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But that's my puzzle, honey. And what are the purpose of puzzles?
Just to give me a snapshot into your brain of things that you think about.
So
what do you think about?
That's right.
I don't need to solve this for you.
Yep.
I don't need to debate it in any way.
Mm-hmm.
I could ask some clarifying questions if I want to, but it's primarily just, what does the brain of David think about?
And this is literally something,
go.
This is a genuine, folks, this is a genuine puzzle that I have and that Theresa was not aware. Had I ever mentioned this to you before?
No, never.
This is not. I've been on a kick recently.
But I know that you've been on a little bit more of a hard rock kick recently of throwback.
Yeah, like Metallica
Yeah.
celebrating their 40th.
But you still did kind of like slide this in here. I was not prepared.
I'm glad.
For this one.
I like to throw you a curveball.
Yeah.
But, and what got me thinking about Iron Maiden is that Metallica was installed into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I think around 2009. And it's a mystery to me because Metallica, Iron Maiden, there's a handful of bands that are in the same era there that I believe really do need to be installed and inducted.
I would say to you, you should do a little rabbit trail later and find out those other bands that are in that group, how many of them are in, and what years did they get inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and then how many of them have not even been nominated yet, or have been nominated and have failed to
I've already
make
looked.
it.
I've already looked.
You've already done that.
I do know this is that this year Foo Fighters are getting in, and
Foo Fighters.
I really believe that the Foo Fighters needed to be inducted.
Yeah.
Like first ballot. They're one of the greatest rock bands of the 90s and early 2000s. But okay, that's enough on my puzzle. But honey, and folks, share your puzzles with one another. Let your partner into your brain, and then when your partner lets you into their brain, receive it without like questioning or kind of demeaning or cutting, because that's the thing. What we want to do is encourage assertiveness and build intimacy by letting your partner into your brain. And so like this Iron Maiden thing, Teresa's not an Iron Maiden fan by any. Could you name an Iron Maiden song at all?
No.
Or could you if I played them right now, would you be like, yeah, that's Iron Maiden. That's a.
Well, no, I'm never good at that. You know that.
Yeah.
The listeners don't know that. But rare is the occasion when you can play something and I know exactly who it is. Now, you could play a couple of their songs and I would be like, oh yeah, I remember that song or I'm familiar with that song. But to say that I would be able to guess the difference between Metallica and Iron Maiden and I don't know, we could name others. I am not that person. However, we have visited the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which is in Cleveland, Ohio, and no, they are not a sponsor of this podcast. But we have visited there. It's a great place to go visit.
Oh, I'd like to go back.
Lots of history there and things, and so I see the value in making sure that some of these more. I don't even want to say prominent groups or bands or artists, musicians that have impacted others, that they make it in.
Is it safe to say that you honestly, you don't care about Iron Maiden?
Honestly, yes.
Okay,
I don't.
And here's the point that I want to make with that is that I don't take that personally, because I want to make a point with our one another couples out there is that you listened though, and you cared because I care, and you were like, well, that's interesting. Thanks for sharing, kind of thing. That's just you didn't go, David, I don't care, or who are they? Why are you sharing this with me? But it's so take interest in your partner, and that's the big takeaway that we want to have. Second thing, folks, go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It is amazing, and
it really is.
And it is a lot of fun. Especially, it's you do kind of have to be a music fan of some sort.
Well, there's enough music in there. Certainly, everyone could find at
more
least
than rock and roll.
Yeah, oh my gosh, way more than rock and roll. But certainly, someone could find at least one piece of it that you would enjoy, if not all of it.
Yeah, that was a family trip for us.
It was a family trip.
We enjoy Hall of Fames, and that's we've shared before about our Sport Hall of Fame tour that we took as a couple.
Right. So we took all the kids, but these, we're talking, these were grown kids.
Yeah, adult
It's not like we were taking
teens,
10, 15 years ago. So, yep.
Yeah, it was good times. So, well, here we go. Thanks for indulging me on that, and my Iron Maiden question. Forgiveness. There have been times in our marriage that we've had to seek or grant forgiveness, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Multiple times.
Yes, multiple times. Right.
Yeah. You laugh.
Well, because when I was unpacking the episode, that's what I was saying was your marriage, your relationship is never going to go without having a hurt, a mistake, a woundedness, a broken trust or
intentional
something.
or unintentional.
Yeah. So the object is not to try and stay above the line on this, but to recognize that when those times happen, which for us, yes, we have had many times where one of us has had to seek forgiveness and the other one has had to grant the forgiveness. Doesn't mean that we're a horrible married couple either. It's just we're human. That's what we are, and we're never going to be perfect, and we shouldn't be worried about trying to get to perfection. We should be more concerned about having those healthy tools in our tool belt, so that when that does happen, we have something we can utilize and go to.
It's truly an issue of healing and restoration.
Absolutely.
No matter whether it could be forgetting a date, or forgetting an anniversary, or forgetting or overlooking. It could be something like, hey, I asked you to get something from the store and then you completely forgot it, or you completely neglected it, all the way to some relationships, which I'm grateful that we haven't faced this, but we know that we've worked with many couples that have faced issues of addiction or infidelity, other hurts and pains that are more of a major betrayal to the relationship.
And may take a lot more effort to heal from.
Yep.
And you really have to work. You have to have both people need to have a true intentionality to work on the marriage.
Yeah, yeah, and because once again, healing and restoration is the key behind this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, before we dive into some mechanics, though? Let's talk about what forgiveness is not. Can you share with the peeps there that a little bit about like?
Yeah. So forgiveness is not forgetting. I know that one trips up a lot of people, right? Because a lot of people are like, "Well, aren't I supposed to forget?" You know, but it doesn't always mean forgetting.
Yeah.
Which is okay. Forgiveness is not condoning. Forgiveness is not perpetuating injustice.
Yeah.
Okay. So
it doesn't always involve reconciliation either, does it? It's sometimes that's impossible in some situations. So like even outside of the marriage, like if you had a parent that really hurt you or a relative, we've talked with folks before that there was a real hurt and pain from childhood that grew up, but then they lose a parent and they can't reconcile. And so it doesn't always include that. Or you have an unwilling party that's willing to do that.
Right. It is not, it's not always quick either.
Yeah.
There really is no true timetable to forgiveness. Now, that's not to say that you should just hold out and be so stubborn. You know, like if your partner has come and seeking your forgiveness on something and you just want to dig your heels in for like a week or whatever, that's just for the the spite of it. That's not healthy. But it's not, forgiveness doesn't have to be granted the exact same moment that it's being sought after as well.
I remember when we taught at a conference and we were having couples work on an exercise, and we were going around kind of coaching couples as they were working on this. We kind of turned on we set up the ambiance where the lights are low, the music's low, so it kind of drowns out what you're
It
hearing.
is not Iron Maiden, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. That is not the music that you choose when you want to do a forgiveness exercise.
Hey, we have a scheduled speaking event in October, and if the host of that event is listening right now, Misty, we request Iron Maiden for our exercise
hilarious.
time with couples.
That's hilarious.
Boy, that'd get them going, wouldn't it? Okay.
Anyway, sorry, you were headed down. I know. So we have the ambiance going.
Yeah, we're working with this. So this couple, we have them actually doing a forgiveness exercise, and the one couple pulls us over. Do you remember this? They pull us over and they said, and she's crying. They're really emotional with one another, and he said to us, she won't forgive me, and we turned to her, the wife, and said, hey, is this true? So forth and so on. And said, do you think one day you will be able to do that? And she said, she threw her tears. She's like, yes, I think so, but not today. This is tough. And we had to turn to him and say, you know what? That's what you need to go on right now, is that it's in time. Some hurt or pain, some when someone's trust has been broken so deeply, it can be a challenge, but it needs to be worked towards. So we aren't the type of folks that say that, boy, you better get it taken care of right away, or like a lot of people will quote, don't let the sun go down on your anger, a scripture, right? Do not let the sun go down on your anger. We believe that teaches more of a principle of not hanging on to bitterness and unforgiveness.
Right.
Now, yes, you should resolve conflict as soon as you are able to do so, but we believe it is sometimes too challenging to just because what if a hurt and pain happens right before you go to bed, and it's not realistic to process that and especially think through without it being fake or put on or like, yes, I forgive you, let's just go to sleep.
Well, and what can happen is due to the timing of it, we never are in favor of saying certain things right before you're ready to go to bed, right? That's never a good, there's some timing involved. But when you live by the mentality of we're not supposed to ever go to bed angry, don't let the sun go down, on your anger, you could work up more of a frenzy by trying to come to peace with it, right? And there could be one person that's just more of like giving in for the concept of just giving in because they're exhausted. It's the end of the day. It could have been a long day. There's a lot of, mental and emotional, just tiredness that can come into play. And it's never a good spot to be in when you're trying to have like forgiveness for something. So
it's really a better act to push the pause button, to have a timeout and say, you know what, I'm not in the right headspace to deal with this, but let's set a time tomorrow, or let's be deliberate about circling back to it. And by golly, folks, circle back to it. Yeah. We would also be just as strongly advocate for you've got to resolve it in time, but you don't have to. It doesn't have to be immediate, and that's our primary point with this section: is that you be patient with one another and do the process correctly. And we're going to walk through a process here shortly,
and be like the couple that you were discussing and saying that particular event that they were discussing was a deep pain and a very deep wound. And it was evident that it was. And while it may have been brought up before and an apology was given on his behalf, I think there was still some true work to be done on how to go about seeking and granting forgiveness and being patient with her, being patient with that process. So, so for some of this that we're going to unpack, you could be like, oh yeah, I've got that. That's easy enough. But there may be some who are listening that have experienced a deep wound or a deep hurt. And this may take time, and you have to be willing to allow the process to unfold, and don't rush it.
No, we haven't given a firm definition of what forgiveness is, right?
Nope.
We said what is not.
Mm-hmm.
But forgiveness, it's, basically, folks, it's that decision or a deliberate choice where you really give up the right for vengeance, retribution, or even negative thoughts toward the person who's offended you in order to be free from anger or resentment. And forgiveness, the true forgiveness, the process promotes healing and restoration, and you have deeper inner peace, and it allows for reconciliation. That's what you really want, reconciliation within the relationship. So forgiveness is really that choice to give up, that you have the right to vengeance, you have the right to retribution, you have the right to think negative things about, but it's giving up that right and releasing the offender, your partner in this case. You're releasing them from kind of what they've. I mean, it's they have a debt.
Right.
It's like all of a sudden that offense causes a debt to you, and it's saying to your partner, I forgive that debt. You no longer owe it to me. I release you from that. That's a tough thing to do, but that's what forgiveness truly is.
That is correct. Yeah. Yeah, and it isn't that's a good way to describe it, that there's a debt that you're erasing, and you're forgiving for that person and not holding it over their head and not trying to get even.
Yes.
And that, unfortunately, is where a lot of couples fall into a lot of times is there's well, just wait, I'll get even with that. You hurt me on this one, I'll give you that one. And really, when we look at it that way, you're looking at it more in that individual state. And that's where our challenge is always, as a couple, you're about the usness, and you're about what's best for the us. And when we look at this individual state of, well, I'll get even with you by this, it's going to be a lose-lose, because there is no true winner in that instance.
Yeah.
This isn't, you're not keeping score on sides, because if you're a true couple looking out for the usness, then you recognize that when one person is hurt and the other person knows that they're the reason that person's hurting, they should be doing everything they can to seek and ask for that forgiveness in true repentance form. So.
Yeah. It's probably appropriate for us to kind of revisit and make sure it's very clear that healthy couples overlook minor offenses.
Yes.
And that's so before we kind of go into the down and dirty about like forgiveness and a process of walking through forgiveness, what we're going to walk through the steps here, it's a little bit more for those deeper issues of broken trust and hurt and pain. But folks, keeping in mind that there are those times that you are offended and you need to not be offended. I mean, they're minor offenses. They're like, it's you overlook. It's like, and it would probably be good to give some examples, but things that come to mind are like, hey, I've asked you to stop by the store on the way home, and you don't get my thing at the store. And it's like, that's a minor offense. And
right.
I shouldn't be like, I am so hurt and offended, and you've broken my trust because I counted on you to pick up my Snickers bar or whatever it is, even though I'm not eating a Snickers bar. But still my thing, right? And it's almost more offensive that you are offended by a minor thing. So healthy couples learn how to overlook minor offenses, and minor offenses make up, of all the offenses in a married relationship, they make up about 60 to 70% of offenses that happen. So really have your discernment on, folks, and be able to think, should I really be hurt by this? And we're not minimizing things that are truly major, part of that 30 to 40% that should be dealt with.
Right. And I think, like for me, if I'm irritated at you over something. You've left, I don't know, you left the cup out on the kitchen counter instead of putting it into the dishwasher or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I keep coming in and or there's several cups around the house. Sometimes that happens. You have one in your office, you have one in the kitchen, there could be one in the basement, there's one in the bedroom. And I know eventually you're going to gather all those cups up, but for every time that I may get perturbed at you and just you're not even in the room, but I'll be mad. I'm just talking to myself about it. Like, oh my gosh, seriously? There's another cup. Just choose one cup, man. How hard is it? Type of deal. I have to stop and think, what do I do that is that to you? What's that? So I need to be able to look at myself and say, okay, I'm certain that there's some things that I don't do to your ask or your standard. And so we each own taking care of those minor offenses, right? I shouldn't have to go to you. I could go to you and say, hey, which we have another way to ask for, what you want. And I could say hey, could you just maybe stick with one cup during the day or have one upstairs and one downstairs, something like that. But at the same time, I also need to recognize that I'm not going to go to you and say, so this whole cup thing, that's a minor offense, right? Would you say that's minor? Or would you say that's major? We don't need to have great dialogue about those things. We just need to have a heart check and really say, is this really hurting my relationship? Is this going to be the thing that just kind of really, puts a wedge?
Yeah.
Now, if it is, then we need to work on some better communication and listening, maybe some conflict resolution.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the things that we're talking about here are those wounded things where we've been together and I have said something that's been a little bit more hurtful about you in front of other people. And by the look on your partner's face when that happens. Yeah. And then you leave that group or that party or whatever you're at, and it's just kind of that silence in the car, while you're driving back home. And that you have stepped over a line. You need to apologize and seek forgiveness for that. Those are the types of things that we're talking about with the seeking and the granting forgiveness.
Yeah. So just to recap a little bit here before we dive into some steps for seeking and granting forgiveness is that all couples experience times of conflict, hurt, and letting each other down. It's par for the course, folks. Forgiveness is the decision or choice to give up the right for vengeance, retribution, and negative thoughts toward the offender in order to be free from anger and resentment. And then it's important to remember that forgiveness is not forgetting, condoning, or perpetrating injustice. Perpetuating.
Not perpetrating.
Perpetrating.
Perpetuating.
Perpetuating injustice. Thank you for reading for me there. I'm glad you corrected me. I forgive you. It's not even that's a minor offense. That's not even an offense. It was my minor offense.
It's your offense.
That's right. So, Dr. Richard Marx, not the guy who did, speaking of music.
Speaking of Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Yeah.
Is he in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
I think we should look up, not right now.
We won't.
But yeah. Right.
What's that song?
Right Here Waiting for You.
Right Here Waiting for You by Richard Marx.
Robin Hood with Kevin Costner back in the day.
He's definitely not in a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, by the way, because I think that's a one-hit wonder. Which, no offense to Richard Marx out there, if you're listening, but here's the thing. Richard Marx, though, I do know that he's made a lot of great music, and he continues to make music to this day from my understanding, but he's not Rock and Roll Hall of Fame material. But this is not the Richard Marx that we're referring
We're not
to.
even talking about that guy.
No, but it's kind of interesting, right?
Okay.
Dr. Richard Marx is actually a marriage and family expert.
Here we go.
He hails from Florida, I believe.
He does. Well,
look him up.
He did.
He did.
Okay.
He was with Marriage for Life. Not sure where he's at now, but Richard D. Marx, if you want to look him up, and he came up with these steps. He at least we're going to give him credit for the work that he's done on this. So we're going to share here in the last 10 minutes or so that we have 6 steps for seeking forgiveness, and then 6 steps for granting forgiveness that has been it's been put together by Dr. Richard Marx.
Mm-hmm. So if you're the person that has wronged the other person, right,
Mm-hmm.
and you need to go and seek forgiveness, the first thing you got to do is you got to admit that what you did was wrong and hurtful. Wrong or hurtful,
Mm-hmm.
okay?
Mm-hmm.
And just to be total transparency here, this is not easy for me. I am not the first one to seek the forgiveness. I'm a little stubborn when it comes to that, and it takes a little bit.
You do.
But
you do get
full
stubborn.
Transparency, David loves to wait me out. So
I love it. My goal is to kill with kindness.
he loves to wait it out, and it just makes me squirm even more. And he's a super patient man when it comes to that. So anyway, okay.
Here's the deal with that. It does at times when I'm being patient. I recognize I'm being patient with you during those moments. I feel like it's building character. And so I'm working on my character during those times.
That's great.
And I have you to thank for that.
Well,
okay, admit when
you're welcome.
Admit what you did was wrong. So, for instance, I admit that I lost my temper with you last night.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that was hurtful and wrong. That would be an example. That didn't really happen, but it's an example.
Right. So after you admit what you did was wrong or hurtful, now you want to try to understand or empathize with the pain that you have caused.
And I understand when I lost my temper with you that that really caused you pain and hurt because it shut you down and discredited your view and opinion.
Mm-hmm. The third thing you want to do is you want to take responsibility for your actions and then make the restitution if necessary. So
when I lost my temper and it had that impact upon you and I lashed out at you, I should have controlled myself. I was responsible for those actions of blowing up at you, and so I see where I take ownership for my response. It was not your fault.
The fourth thing would be to assure your partner that you will not do it again.
And I'm going to work on that I watch my temper and that I'm going to, I will try my hardest. And I assure you that I'm going to try not to do that again where I lose my temper.
The fifth step would be to apologize and ask for forgiveness.
And for losing my temper and acting out like that, I'm truly sorry. And will you forgive me?
And then the last step would be to actually forgive yourself as well.
Yeah, and that act of just saying, "Hey, you can't beat yourself up for missteps and for when you step out, but just kind of resolve to do it differently next time." Mm-hmm. So those are your 6 steps in seeking and granting forgiveness.
And I think it's important to note...
Or seeking forgiveness.
For seeking forgiveness. You're the one that's seeking it.
Yes.
I think it's important to note on that 5th step there, key phrase to all this is you're apologizing, but you're asking for the forgiveness. It is not enough to just say, "Hey, sorry about that." Mm-hmm. So we really are trying to position ourselves to be in that vulnerability to say, "Will you forgive me?" I mean, it's very challenging, and
sorry is not enough.
Sorry is not enough.
And
Not enough.
in fact, we like to always throw this in when parenting, folks. A little fun fact for parenting: please don't teach your children just to look at each other and go "sorry" and move on, but teach your children how to say, "I am sorry. Will you forgive me?"
Mm-hmm.
That's important. So the six steps for granting forgiveness coincide with each of the 6 steps for seeking forgiveness. So as we walk through each one of these, think about what the 1 through 6 for seeking forgiveness, what those say as well. So number 1 is acknowledge your pain and anger and allow yourself to feel disrespected.
Mm-hmm. So if I was the one, you were apologizing for your temper.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm acknowledging the pain and anger that I felt from that, and recognizing that, yeah, that was disrespectful toward me.
Yeah. Number 2 would be specific about your future expectations and limits.
Yeah, so just recognizing to say, yeah, I know, like, you lost your temper last night with this situation, and just for the future when we're talking about that particular subject, we should probably be seated and just having more of a conversation.
Mm-hmm. Number 3 is you give up your right to get even, but insist on being treated better in the future.
Right. And so I'm not going to get revenge on you. I'm not going to get mad back at you just to get even with you. And I do want you to treat me as an equal and better in the future.
Number 4 would be let go of blame, resentment, and negativity towards your partner.
And so that's where I don't know necessarily that this one has to be said out loud, like, okay, I'm going to let go of blame and resentment and negativity toward you. But you could, if there's truly something that you're just kind of like feeling there that does one of those 3, then that would be specific that you would need to state. So you could say, like for me, I would probably say, yeah, I'm not gonna hold on to the blame for that argument with you.
Yeah. Number 5, this is very important because it coincides with number 5 of the one that's seeking forgiveness is apologize and ask forgiveness. Number 5 for someone who's granting forgiveness is actually communicate your act of forgiveness to your partner.
Mm-hmm. So when you have said those words, will you forgive me? My response then to you is, yes, I will forgive you.
Mm-hmm. Not only will, but I forgive you.
I forgive you. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I guess it's kind of
not a will. Yeah. It's not will. Yeah.
I will one day. If you keep it up, I don't know.
Yeah. So yes, I forgive you.
All right. And number 6 is work toward reconciliation when safe.
Mm-hmm. And so that one also, it's not a verbal necessary response, but as the person that's granting the forgiveness, a lot of times when you say, like, yes, I forgive you, usually there's that relief is felt from the person who has been the offender. And a lot of times it's just a great opportunity then to just reach out, like with a hug or, just to show that, like, comfort of just like, yeah, I'm okay with this. I'm letting go of this. So,
and the one who's seeking forgiveness is acknowledge that forgiveness has been given, granted, and be thankful and express that thankfulness to your partner. And so this takes a lot of work, doesn't it, hon?
It does.
This is especially we do not want to be dismissive of true hurt and pain and when someone's been when conflict or pain has happened, or just trust has been broken, and when it's really deep, and we know there's varying degrees. There are minor offenses. Please work through those. But when it comes to kind of medium and even large offenses, this is tough, and it can be very difficult, and it can take time. But it takes work, but it's well worth it because intimacy is developed and grown, and marriages that work through some of these issues, some of these more severe issues, and do the hard work of seeking and granting forgiveness find themselves much closer and healthier in the long run when they get through that storm or that challenging time. So
Right.
we would encourage, push through no matter how difficult it is, do the right things in walking through this process.
And I would, that's a great way to just kind of like wrap it up with that call to action and just encouragement that's there, that it is worth it to seek the forgiveness and to grant it.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Well,
so
we hope this has been helpful to you today. And before we leave you, though, why don't we do that verse of the day?
Yep. So I have the verse. The verse is actually it's 2 verses coming out of Matthew 6:14 and 15. If you forgive those who sin against you, your heavenly Father will forgive you. But if you refuse to forgive others, your Father will not forgive your sins. Matthew 6:14 and 15.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful stuff. So, folks, thanks for listening again this week. And can we ask once again, especially on Apple iTunes, Apple Podcast, will you rate, review, and subscribe? We really appreciate it. It makes a difference. And listen, Apple pays attention to that algorithm when you hit that 5 stars. We hope that it's 5 stars worthy for you, and that you give a good review for that. And then the other thing we'd ask is hit that share button right away. If you could join with us, and that's when we talk about the stronger marriages for greater satisfaction and impact on couples around you, on others around you. So you can have an impact right now by hitting the share button and sending this to somebody that you really care about.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, and we look forward to our next time together.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.